From promising to change the hierarchy of DC to hinting at a potential showdown between Black Adam and Superman, Dwayne Johnson definitely made some big claims that he won't be able to live up to. But despite all this, he's been pointing at James Gunn lately, going so far as to say that the director was making a mistake by not bringing back Henry Cavill. The star recently broke his silence on the whole DCU shakeup situation. Most people were wondering just what The Rock's opinion of it was, and if he was really as okay with it as it seemed to be. Obviously, he must have been shocked when the studio decided to go with this route. After all, for the longest time, he had this whole big shakeup of his own plan, and now, while talking to Variety, Dwayne finally let the world know just what his thoughts were.
Henry Cavill, you brought him back, but now they're saying he's not playing Superman. What do you say to this?
And you have a new owner, and the new owner comes in, says, not my coach, not my quarterback, I'm going to go with somebody new.
Johnson stated that he was simply putting his best foot forward when he was making Black Adam. I'm guessing he didn't expect it to be as big of a colossal disaster as it turned out to be. But hey, that's just the way things go sometimes. However, the star did have some words of advice for the new DC film's director. He mentioned that Cavill being dropped from the DC universe is a big blow to the franchise. It's clear that Johnson thinks that James should try and keep Cavill around. Johnson himself was very much on board with Henry's return, and a big part of the future he envisioned for DC was him going toe-to-toe with Superman himself. So it's clear that Dwayne very much would have liked to see Henry return to the role. Though just because James has other plans doesn't necessarily mean that it's a mistake. After all, his decision to restart the DC universe from scratch, while bold, is very much needed. Just looking at the sorry state of the current DC roster should be evidence enough that a blank slate was very much needed, with multiple versions of the same heroes, as well as abandoned storylines and even movies that go nowhere. The DC universe was a difficult mess to understand even for the most well-versed fans. Now, imagine if a new fan just started watching these movies and trying to understand what's canon and what isn't. To get rid of all that baggage, James Gunn pulled the trigger and set the foundation for the new DC universe. But of course, that meant that the previous cast had to mostly be let go, in place of new actors and new stories. It just so happened that one of the stories that James was very passionate about was one regarding a younger Superman. This iteration of the character would very much be a hero that's in the phase of understanding just what it means to be a superpowered person from an alien planet, all the while attempting to rediscover the humanity that makes him so relatable. It's a fun idea, but it requires a young actor, and Henry, as good as he is in the role, just wasn't cut out for it. He'd be an incredible Kal-El who's matured and wised up, but a younger and fresher approach to the iconic superhero needed someone who looked the part.
You've grown stronger here than I ever could have imagined. The only way to know how strong is to keep testing your limits.
Though James's reasoning for not hiring Cavill may be sound, fans were still not happy. And I mean, I get it. Henry is the Superman for most people. His portrayal was just so iconic that most people really can't imagine anyone else donning that red cape and flying around the sky in the DC universe. And while the previous DC management may have messed up Cavill's chances, fans still think that James could have found some room in his new universe for the actor. What makes it much worse is that Johnson apparently brought Cavill back for that cameo at the end of Black Adam. Fans were excited that after so long, they would finally get to see Henry return to his iconic role again.
Black Adam. We should talk.
So to have that taken away from them so quickly made them very upset at Gunn. Most people were even writing off the new DC universe before they even learned any details about it. It definitely made it so James had a hard time winning over the audience. And for the most part, he still hasn't done so properly. However, James is not deterred by the criticism, and hoping that it gets revived by Netflix of all things. He mentioned that he knows that the DC universe is going through a stage of turbulence right now. Most fans aren't aware of their plans in proper detail, and so it's easy to call them out on things. But the film might showcase some amount of patience in what James and Peter Safran are planning.
It's one of
Our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation.
The DC Films head also called out a certain section of the online fan base that was getting a bit too heavy-handed with their insults. He mentioned that no one likes being called names, and that this sort of disrespectful outcry isn't going to make them change their course. They are still motivated to make the right decisions for the DC Universe, regardless of what it may seem like right now. And while the fan outcry is justified to some degree, I think calling James names and being disrespectful is going too far. Plus, I think that this anger is really being directed at the wrong person. After all, it's not James that wasted Henry Cavill's time. It's the previous DC management. They had such an amazing slate at their fingertips. But they were more concerned with imitating Marvel than with creating their own amazing universe. With Henry as Superman and Affleck as Batman, they had all the tools they needed to make something truly spectacular. But I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Plus, if anything, all of the recent backlash should be directed at Johnson. He's the one who made these big, bold claims about the future of the DC Universe with nothing to back them up. He made it seem like he had this big plan about the future of the DC Universe and won over everyone at Warner Brothers, when clearly he was just making things up as he went. Behind the scenes, the studio was planning to have James Gunn take over, so the big showdown that The Rock promised was really just a pipe dream. You could even call it a fake-out that he did just to market Black Adam, which makes it all the more ironic that the film failed to perform well despite this entire saga. Plus, there's another important thing to keep in mind, especially if you're a Cavill fan. Just because he's not going to play Superman doesn't mean he can't have a place in the DCU. All of the rumors that people have been spouting about Gunn hating Cavill and not wanting to work with him are probably false. It's clear that they're on good terms. That means Henry could return to the DCU as a completely different character in the future. Some recent rumors have even stated that they may have been called to the studio to discuss this very possibility. However, nothing has been confirmed as of yet. Some fans were thinking that having Henry Cavill play Superman's dad would be awesome. After all, if he's too old to play Kal-El, he's the perfect age for Kal-El's father, right? Plus, it could give fans the chance to see Henry on the big screen as a DC superhero again. But all of that is still very much in the distant future. In any case, that's all the details I've got about Johnson thinking that not bringing Cavill back is a mistake.